What's up, guys? Welcome to Running Things. My name's Rylie. I'm your host. I'm also the editor over at tempojournal.com. Today, we're speaking to world champs again. We got 800-meter world champ, undefeated in 2020 as well, the amazing Donavan Brazier jumping on the show. If you're not already familiar, we had a pretty sick feature on Donavan earlier this season, like March, April, written by a friend of the show, Jeff Merrill. So I'll link that in the show notes as well, because it gives some really great insight into the athlete-coach relationship between Donavan Brazier and his coach, Pete Julian. And one of the things that's really interesting about the way Donavan approaches racing, or the way that he's coached as well, is like, you know, with the level of ability that Donavan has, it's not necessarily running to hit times or running to achieve standards. He's going to hit those anyway. So he's really coached on the basis of, let's put him in uncomfortable positions and see if he can learn to win, right? So tactically, just an amazing racer. He literally can win from anywhere on the track. So that's something really special about Donavan. It's going to make him pretty hard to beat as we go towards Tokyo next year. And he's also just a heck of a guy as well. So enjoy this chat with Donavan Brazier. All right, guys, super excited today. We have the world champ in the building, undefeated, Donavan Brazier. Donavan, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man. Where are you right now, firstly?
I'm in Portland, Oregon right now. I just got here a couple of days ago.
You're on off season right now, I imagine?
Yep. So just kind of chilling right now, not training, just kind of focusing on healing and recovery since the season's been over.
Let's talk about that season. Obviously, a very strange 2020. And if we go all the way back, I want to talk a little bit about Millrose shortly, but that feels like, you know, decades ago, right? Obviously had a really great start to the season, and then, you know, some downtime, and then raced the big friendly series, which was amazing. And then capped off with a couple of Diamond League wins recently as well. How do you grade the season? I mean, undefeated, so that's amazing, but obviously a really weird year. Like, what do you walk away from this season with?
It's definitely different. It was you know, going back to Murrow's, like you said, like it was kind of one of those feelings where you don't really know what you got till it's gone, you know. And I ended my Melrose games thinking I was going to take a month off of training or a month off of racing and then go straight into competing again outdoor season. But, you know, I didn't realize, you know, a couple weeks later, the coronavirus had hit, and then like all these precautions and all these meets getting canceled would come. So like my last race at the Melrose games out there in New York, like I really didn't, I guess, get the full appreciation for it, because, you know, I didn't realize that what was ahead, you know. And then once I did have all that off time, it was kind of hard to find motivation at times, because you don't really know what you're training for. I mean, they canceled the Olympics all the way up until, I think, late March. So there was that big gap between, you know, March, April, May, where there was really like no meets whatsoever. So just kind of trying to find that motivation to keep on training and to figure out what it's for was kind of hard at times.
And that's like, you know, I think maybe especially for you, we know you as a racer, right? You're not there to run times, and you're not there to, you know, aim for standards or whatever. You're just an out and out racer. You just want to compete. So while a lot of other people, you know, were still looking to like stay in shape and super easily motivated, for you, without that end goal, that race, was that really hard to kind of, you know, keep that same intensity about yourself?
Yeah, it's very hard. Like you said, like I get more of a accomplished feeling off of a good race rather than a good workout. And I feel like I get my validation from my fitness more in races opposed to workouts. Just because, like you said, I'm more of a racer rather than you know, a workout like partner or something like that. So not having those races and not kind of getting that validation to see what kind of training I'm in or what kind of shape I'm in, it was hard at times, like you said, to kind of find that motivation to keep on training. And, you know, we had our group kind of was still congregated in the Portland area, but, you know, Craig was out in Tennessee and Eric was out in Boston, and we were kind of all separated. So that's when it made things really hard at times.
I want to talk a little bit about, I guess, your approach to training and racing with your coach, Pete Julian.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are quite transparent about the fact that Pete really is teaching you how to win from anywhere. And we've seen that over the last couple of years, like the positions we see you in, you know, at the halfway point of a race, like, you know, you're learning now to win, you know, to front run like you did at USA's, or Millrose was really interesting as well, right? I mean, I think the instruction from what I've read from Pete was like, with 200 to go or 300 to go, he wanted you pretty close to last.
Yeah.
And, you know, and still like had that blistering final 200 and set an American record. How hard was it to to, I guess, trust that idea of like getting yourself in these like, quote unquote bad positions and then still being able to win a race?
Yeah, it was definitely a hard thing for me to learn. I mean, ever since high school up until, my early years of college and even my early professional stages, I was only the guy that was a front runner. So I felt like I had to be in those top, first, second, third positions in order to feel like I could, end the race successfully. So coming over to Pete and the group out there in Oregon, I just decided to put my full trust in what he was doing. So when it came to this trusting thing, it was kind of like, okay, well, if I do it and everything works out, great. And if I do it and it doesn't work out, then it's Pete's fault. And Pete has been he shares the blame at things and stuff like that. And everything he said has been working out for me. So I think just the more that he's been coaching me, and the more that I'm starting to follow his guidance and stuff like that, I think the more trusting I'm getting in what he's saying. Because we're kind of finally getting, after a year, 2 years we've been together, like a full understanding of like what we're getting out of each other.
And how is that? How is that kind of two-way communication after a race? Like, I mean, obviously it's easy when everything's going well and you're winning all the time, right? But what is that kind of feedback cycle like after something like USA's or after a Doha? Like, what do you guys sort of go through?
It's definitely like he keeps me grounded at times, because so far with Pete, like I've been doing very, very well with him. I haven't had too many races where we had to really sit down and be like, you messed up here, here, and here. For the most part, we've had, a pretty good string of races, but I know it's not always going to be like that. There's going to be races where I don't run as well and, I'm just going to be in the gutter. But I think for us, it's always trying to not be complacent with where we're at in our races and how I finish. Because Pete has a full trust in me and a belief in me that I'm the best 800-meter runner in the world. And, that's the kind of coach you want in order to become the best 800-meter runner in the world. And that's what he was able to develop in the 2019 season. So I think for him, it's never being complacent. It's whenever he sees even a little bit of weakness or a little bit of vulnerability in my racing or in my training, he makes sure that we attack it. He makes sure that we're on top of it. He makes sure that, kind of limit that vulnerability for other athletes to kind of, take advantage of.
I think like, most of the world sees you as the best 800-meter runner in the world. And we've heard things from Pete. Actually, Jeff Merrill wrote a great piece about you with a lot of input from Pete earlier in the year on Tempo. I'll link to that in the show notes. But, Pete has said like the workouts that you've been able to do over the last 6-12 months are just not workouts that he's seen anybody else be able to get close to, right? And every time, especially, even before the big friendly and then before Diamond League this season, it feels like there's this expectation every time you go out to race. People are talking, message boards, Instagram, people are talking about like, okay, so when's he going to break Rudisha's world record? You must hear that, right? And do you feel the pressure from that, or do you just brush it off? Like, how do you approach that?
It's definitely, like you said, gotten worse and progressed, and especially since winning the world title last year. But it comes with the territory for sure. I'd rather have it than not have it. But it gets to the point where it's like you just kind of have to tune all that stuff out. Like I remember I was running in Hungary at a meet out there for 600 meters, and the race director, and however they set it up, it was supposed to be a world record attempt race. And I'm not saying that I wasn't in shape to do it, but there was definitely like no point in time where I ever mentioned trying to go for Johnny Gray's American/world record in this 600 meters, and I feel like they try to say like I'm downplaying these things, but it's like I never in the first place said that I was trying to go after these things. So people will kind of make up stories along with it. And, I really don't mind it too much because I think there's a certain respect that comes with it. But I'm also smart enough to know and have a respect for the people who have come before me to know that it's not going to be easy. David Rudisha, that record held for, I don't even know how many years before him. And people say David Rudisha is a once in a lifetime athlete. Those records don't just come and get broken like once every few years. That's like a really hard record to break. He's the only guy to go sub 141. So I think when people kind of just throw it out there like it's just something that's supposed to happen, not that could happen, I think it's just not as attainable. Not saying it's impossible, but it's not as attainable or as easy as people may try to make it.
Speaking of, you raced that 600 in Hungary, and that was kind of in between Monaco and Stockholm. I think a lot of us around the world watch those Diamond League races, like watch the streams on YouTube and whatever else. It looked like a lot of fun, like especially after the race we saw in Monaco. You guys were just living the life on the boat out there, having fruit platters and all that sort of stuff. How How important is it for you, because you're not, like you've said before, you're not a big track and field nerd. How important is it for you on those trips to just like get away, have some fun, have some downtime?
It's very important, and I think having this kind of team aspect, because track and field is such an individualized sport. You know, you're only running for yourself, and that's about it. The only kind of team aspect you get is when you're running for a world team or like a relay team, like a pen relays of such. But when Pete is able to, gather this group of athletes like we have, I think there's 8 of us now, but there was 6 of us that traveled to Europe. It makes things a little bit more fun. It makes things more, team oriented, and it's just it kind of brings out the life in the sport. Because when I was doing this at the early stages of my career, it just felt so boring. Like everything was a drag, training by yourself, lifting by yourself, traveling by yourself, racing by yourself. It got really taxing in my body, and I was really sick of it. But having guys, like Craig, Eric, Raven, Shannon, Jess, and everybody on our team, and Coco, it's a huge benefit, I think, mentally, because it kind of lays off that strain. Because yes, we're a track group, but our whole personalities don't resolve around track. We each have our things, we each have our niche, and we each kind of, have our lives outside of track. And I think that's really big and healthy to have.
And it is it's been said before, but it is kind of like Pete's group is kind of the United Nations of teams, basically, right? Like, and you've obviously got Jess Hull, an Australian, in there, and Raven Rogers obviously just joined in the last couple of months. What's it like having just such a wide range of backgrounds and personalities mixing together on the team? Must be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun because, like you said, everybody comes from different places, and we're not even close to being like a group where we just train together. We're not like a Bowerman where everybody just kind of has the same like template when it comes to training. Like, Pete really works hard in making sure that we still get the individualism that we need when it comes to training. So a guy like Craig who runs a 15 and a guy like me, we might cross training every once in a while, but we don't base our training off of each other. I mean, he's training marathoners, someone that runs, like 60 times my distance or whatever it might be. So he's definitely a hell of a coach when it comes to figuring out, what works for each athlete. And I think that's what I've been able to really appreciate in the development that I've had with him the past year and a half. And, he's got new people that are relatively new. Like Jess is still relatively new. Like they developed a good relationship so far. And Raven just joined a few months back. So yeah, really excited to see how they do. But so far, like all of his athletes, we're all very happy with where we're at with him because of the time and the effort and just he gets so stressed out about things, like he almost gets more stressed out about races and practices than we do because he puts so much time and effort into the things that he does.
That training, like training kind of aspect is interesting because, yeah, like you mentioned Bowerman, and especially if we look at the Bowerman women, right? There's 4 or 5 athletes who all compete in the same distance. So in training, I can imagine they're kind of feeding off each other and probably a reasonably competitive environment. Whereas for you guys, you're not kind of going head to head or toe to toe during practice. Is it kind of hard to like switch on for training when it's kind of just you sometimes, or do you prefer it that way?
I kind of prefer it this way because there's some sort of secrecy in things that we do, and Pete kind of holds that to heart to make sure that what he does in our training really doesn't get out. So everybody on our team can and should make world teams and Olympic teams. So to not have to really compete for those spots while you're just in training, there's 5 people on Bowerman's team, but obviously it's working for them because they're racing really fast, so it works for some and it doesn't for others. But for me personally, I wouldn't want to feel like I have to race to get on that podium, the top 3 to make in a world team, in practice every day. I kind of like having the opportunity to train with a miler or to train with a 5K runner to build off my endurance and for them to be able to train with me and kind of get their speed-oriented workouts down. So we just kind of feed off each other, and that's what's worked really well for us.
Hey, I was talking to Jess Hull a couple of days ago in preparation for this interview today. Sort of said, "Hey Jess, what's news with Donavan? What's give me a little inside goss, give me something I can talk to him about." And she said she was impressed with your fishing ability in Stockholm recently. So I want to know, do you like when you look on the calendar and see, okay, I'm going to Stockholm, do you take your own fishing gear with you, or like what's the process there?
No, not in the slightest. When I saw I was going to Stockholm, I was just not in the slightest. I think about maybe about it after the race, but my main focus is definitely racing when I go there. But yeah, I just had a week afterwards. I just hung around Sweden because it was really nice over there. So I just decided to buy a fishing pole, buy some gear, buy some tackle, and I was just fishing right out of the harbor in downtown Stockholm. So it was a lot of fun, but I think they were kind of surprised by that because I didn't tell anybody about it. I just kind of I didn't show up with the fish, but I sent a picture to the group message of me fishing. They're like, "What the hell? Like, what what are you doing?" Like, but no, it's not like my main focus when I'm going to places like that.
Do you invite? You spend a lot of time with Craig, obviously. Do you invite Craig on those fishing trips, or like I imagine his level of noise kind of would disturb the fish potentially?
Yeah, that actually probably doesn't play any correlation, but that's a really good excuse I could use to not bring him because that's for my peace of mind of just going out and fishing and relaxing. And if I was gonna have Craig there, I'd rather just not. To be honest, I love Craig to death. And there's lots of things I like to do with him, but fishing probably just is not one of them.
Speaking of Craig and also the big friendly, Jeff Merrill, as I've mentioned already, like big friend of ours and a former guest on the show, and like did a lot of the organizing for the big friendly. He kind of shared a story in the first write-up of the first big friendly meet. I think you had run the 1500 maybe, and then you came back half an hour later to pace the 800. I think you know where this is going. And you were supposed to, I think Craig wanted to run a 52-second first 400.
Yep.
And like your first 200 of that race was like electric. Was that like deliberate just to like blow the doors off Craig, or what happened there?
It was not deliberate at all. Okay, so here's the thing. Craig wanted to go out at 52. I thought it was a pedestrian pace. I thought he should be going out at 49.50, right? So if anything, I overselled Craig. I thought Craig could have went out in 49 and came back with a 53 or 40. Yeah, 53, for a 142 shape. But Craig didn't commit. And I kind of take the blame for that. But I still think Craig, is a 143, 144 runner. So I always just kind of set him up for that kind of race, So, if he wants to blame me for the way I got out, he can go ahead and do that. But I just have so much respect for Craig that I thought he was going to run 142 that day, I guess.
All right. Donovan, I want to talk. You've mentioned before that you're not a massive track and field nerd. Like you're not. We see some people who absolutely, like we had Dalila Muhammad on the show last week, and she said she watches a lot of YouTube on track and field and likes to see what her competitors are up to, what everybody's running. You've said you're the opposite, to the point where, a lot of times you won't even really research your competition or who you're competing against. Does that make it interesting in races sometimes? Like, at the bell, if you find yourself sitting third or fourth, are you ever thinking, okay, who's this guy in front of me? I wonder what this guy's got. Could, like what sort of kick does this guy have in front of me? Or are you not really bothered by that?
I get what you're saying, but for me, I've raced most of the guys at this point to kind of know, firsthand and what they do and how they respond to certain things. Like a guy like, for example, Marco Arop from Canada. I've raced him 5 times this past calendar cycle. So there's just certain things I know with him. Like if you try to pass him on the backstretch, he's going to match that move to kind of hold you off, but he'll kind of die off that last 100 meters usually. And obviously everything changes and a lot of variables that go into the races. But little things like that I can kind of remember from prior races, because there's a lot of different things, a lot of different variables that go into those races when you watch them from a different perspective, But from all the races that I do, like these Diamond Leagues, it's usually the same guys week after week that I'm racing. So I kind of know where their strong suits are, where they're going to be in the pack, and what they're kind of doing. So it's definitely not like I don't know what my competitors are doing, but it's just to the point where I don't need to over study what they're doing, because I've raced them enough to this point, and I 100% respect every single competitor that I race when I'm on the line. So there's no difference between knowing what they can do compared to knowing what I can do. When no matter what, either if I'm racing a 148 guy or a 142 guy, I'm going to go into it with the same mindset and the same level of respect for each and every one of them.
Are you sick of people asking about your training mileage?
I'm sick of people not believing me, I guess, or what. The thing is, you can ask me, but it's like, if you're going to ask me and say that I'm lying about it, then don't even ask me in the first place, So it's like, I'm not going to write out a whole training regimen about what I do, but I'll give you a rough estimate of what my mileage is like, because it's not that crazy or that unheard of for a guy like me to only run 35 miles a week, So I think people try to make excuses or try to, I don't know. I think the quality of what I get over the quantity of what I get is really specific to me, and it works for me, and maybe it doesn't work for everybody, but it's worked for me so far. So that's something that Pete said when I first joined the group is something that he would not change. And I probably went from like 25 miles to 35 miles a week, which was a big up for me. But for the most part, it's still, from what I've heard, relatively low for 800, 400, 1500 meter runner, whatever you want to, I guess, call me.
You have some amazing women in the squad, right? Especially at that sort of 5K distance. Shannon, Jess, Coco, etc. You know where this is going. Another thing I was talking with Jess about, she said, it comes up in conversation, or like there's a bit of debate occasionally in the group about how you would go in a 5K against the strong women in your group.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
So I'm more of a racer, right? So I'm more of a racer. So I know where they're getting after me at, because they can drop me in every single workout. I mean, our women's squad they're insane. We got, the fresh blood like Coco and Jess, and we got the young gun, or the older one, Shannon, who, is just a gritter, and she's been in the game, and she just kind of mentally knows where it's at. But there has not been a workout so far where it's like I've been able to hang with them. So I see where they're coming from that. But like we discussed earlier in this, is that I'm more of a racer. I could maybe be more tactically like suspicious when it comes to those kind of things. So if I was gonna race them, I try to leave it to a sit and kick. But knowing them and them kind of knowing my weakness, they'd probably go out at like a 14 minute 5K. But if they want to challenge me to a 5K, I've never backed down from that. I mean, I have more to win, and they have more to lose when it comes to that, because they're probably doing twice the mileage than I am. Sure. So I see where they're coming from, but I still think, and I'm going to hold on to, I think I could beat them in a 5K.
You've said before, like, you obviously an 800 runner, but like, with that sort of swing ability, you've said before, you kind of want to hang on to that 400 as well, but Pete's kind of pushing you in the other direction towards the 15.
Yeah.
Is that a battle you're going to lose?
It seems like it, and I'm just kind of like I'm sabotaging myself when it comes to that too, because I'm running more 15s, and I'm running them decently well at this point, where it's making them seem more, optimistic about my 1500 meter strength compared to my 400 meter strength. Now, to be a great 800 meter runner, you still have to, I believe, be very good in that 400. And I think if you kind of just start to distance yourself from all that speed training and, things that I've developed at, the speed program like Texas A&M down there, I think if we kind of stray away from that for too much or too far a time, I think it's going to end up maybe slowing me down a little bit. And, Pete seems to think otherwise, but that's just the excuse I use to maybe help train for a 400 a little bit more, because since I've joined this group out here, I haven't ran 400 meters. So I'm still looking for the opportunity to do so, but we'll see if Pete ever lets me. I think it'd have to be a special occasion. Maybe we'll run one in September or early October, but I don't know. I'd love to run one though.
Speaking of the rest of 2020, have you mapped out the rest of, again, we're back into like that uncertainty phase, right? Have you mapped out what the rest of 2020 looks like? Obviously you're taking some time to kind of heal and recover now, but what's next for you?
I'd like to do something fast, maybe the early indoor season, or even, because I haven't really lost too much in Stockholm. So if something came up these next few weeks, like a 400 potentially, maybe another 6, I'd love to do that. But right now, everything's still up in the air. When I go back to where my hometown, Grand Rapids, Michigan, my mom and I are supposed to run a local 5K. So that might be my next big race. I'm going to get her some vapor plies and see if she can rip a 5K. But that's my next race plan, is for me to pace her to a sub. I think she wanted to go sub 27 for a 5K, so I'm going to pace her for that, and we'll see if I can hang on.
How full on are you going to be wearing like World Champs kit for that 5K? Are you going to just be a bit more low key?
I'm definitely wearing the World Champ kit, and I'm getting her the vapor flies. I'm getting her everything. I already told her we're going to ball out for this 5K. We're going to be looking like the best runners there. We might not be the best runners there, but we might be the best looking ones. So I'm going to get her all the gear and everything for sure.
How often do you get back to Michigan?
Probably a few times a year. I'd say 4 or 5 times a year. Definitely spend more time there in the off season. This time of year, my cousins and stuff like that are doing a lot of salmon fishing, so I'm trying to make it there. Squirrel season opens up on the 15th of September, so what is it, 6 days from now, squirrel season opened up. So, I kind of play it off of that and kind of hunting season to see when I'm going to make my trips back there, but probably about 4 or 5 times a year, depending on, the schedule for this kind of things.
You're a real outdoorsman, huh?
I am, but I've strayed away from that the past 4 years since going down to Texas A&M. So now being professional and now having this kind of opportunity to go back and kind of have gaps in my training, I've really been able to capitalize on going back to my roots and going back to the squirrel, rabbit, and fishing and buck hunting and everything like that. So, yeah, it's fun.
Is that why you and Craig get along so well? Both big outdoors guys.
See, he's like a different outdoorsy guy, you know? Like he likes to like live in his RV and stuff like that, and he can go on these long road trips. I can't do that, you know. He lived in this 1970 Toyota Dolphin, and it was kind of gross, you know. At the end of the day, I'd like to go home in a nice clean shower and have Wi-Fi and a nice comfy bed. Craig's more like rugged when it comes to that kind of stuff, you know. So I think that's where we differ, but we are like somewhat in that kind of area.
All right, I got a few fun questions for you now. Obviously, Tokyo has been postponed 2021. If you could compete in the Olympics in any other sport, so get off the track, what do you think you would have the most chance in, or what would you like to do?
Okay, so what would I have the most chance in, and which one would I like, or is it just a two-part question?
Two-part.
Okay, so the one I'd like the most is definitely by basketball. I'd love to be around those kind of guys for an Olympic team. So I think that'd be a lot of fun. You know, definitely not be a starter or in any sort of world I would make the team for that. But if that's the question, that'd be the most fun. But I think the most competitive I could be at if I was to do another, we're talking summer Olympic sport, would probably be swimming. I think swimming would be up there. I'm not a strong swimmer, but I feel like it's probably the closest to track. Maybe that or like speed skating is not summer, is it? That's winter.
That's winter.
Biking, is biking summer?
Yeah.
Maybe biking. Maybe like that indoor biking where it's like that little 200 or 400 meter.
In the velodrome.
Yeah. Maybe something like that. If I got, you know, my quad strength up and just kind of, I think maybe biking would be it.
Yeah, those are some big dudes.
Yeah. It's kind of dangerous though. I don't know if I'd want to do that, but yeah, maybe my best chance would be biking.
Hey, you mentioned basketball, which is a great segue because I do have a bunch of audience questions today. So I'll go through about 4 or 5 of those. The first one is from my friend Mo. He has asked 400 meters around the track, you versus Russell Westbrook, dribbling a basketball.
Okay. I was wondering where, I thought it was just going to be me versus Russell Westbrook, and I was like, that's easy, that's me. But you threw in the variable. Okay. With the basketball, I would still pick me. I think Russell, what's he? He sits at about, 6'2"? How tall is Russell Westbrook? He's probably, 6'2"?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
6'2", and he's athletic, and he's strong. He plays basketball, must have decent endurance. I'd take my chances with him. I think maybe for a 200, it might be a little closer, but a 400 is still far for those kind of guys because they're only running, you know, the length of a court and kind of cutting and such things. So I think for me versus Russell Westbrook, dribbling a basketball 400 meters, I'm going to take me probably 95 times out of 100.
Would you take it out fast? Try and like blow him up early?
I think there's no way I could really lose in that because I think he's not going to. If I'm with him with 300 meters left, I'm winning. And, you know, so I think either way, I think I would have a really, really good chance of beating Russell Westbrook in a 400 dribbling a basketball.
All right, look, we probably won't get to see the matchup, but I'm gonna take your word for it.
They have like world records for that kind of stuff, like 400 meters.
They must, right? Like, surely, you know, you got some downtime. Like, surely you and Craig between you could just rack up a bunch of Guinness World Records, right?
Yeah, well, because I saw it for the mile, so I'm seeing like the BYU coach had her woman like do the mile for the basketball world record. So I mean, a mile is kind of far for my taste, but I'd love to do like a 400 or 200 dribbling a basketball. So maybe I'll talk to Pete about that. I might shoot him a text after this, actually.
Maybe we can get Jeff to set that up as part of the next big friendly or something like that.
That'd actually be awesome. I'd really look forward to
that. Another audience question from Kyle. He wants to know, in an 800, like let's pick Doha, actually, the Doha 800. At what point in that race, at what point does the pain or the hurt start to sort of set in the 800?
Oh. See, it varies on the kind of race, you know. If it's like a sit and kick race, you never really feel the pain. But for Doha, I think I really started hitting that lactic with about like 50 meters left. You know, and I'm not saying that it wasn't painful before that, but I was like, that was the only point I got nervous was like 50 meters left and that lactic really started to set in. Because I made some moves earlier in that race where it was probably not the smartest and I made them a little almost too strong. And if I went back, there's only a couple technical errors I could probably think of. But, you know, on an average 800 where there's like not all that adrenaline on my side or all that, you know, momentum, I'd probably say with that backstretch with 300 meters to go is when it kind of make or breaks the race. You know, you only get one move for an 800 meter, so you kind of got to make it at the right time. Usually I like to make it, you know, farther out than you know, closer to the finish line, but it kind of just varies on the type of race.
Question from a friend, Hamoud Photos here. What's your favorite place in the world to train or to race?
Ooh. Okay. So my favorite place to race, I would say, is in Japan. So I've done a race in Japan, the World Relays last year, and just kind of the atmosphere that they built in Yokohama. I mean, if that's anything that's going to represent Tokyo, I'm really looking forward to that because they just have like the coolest and like the loudest fans and like all of them, like they don't know who you are, but they're so appreciative of you coming to them and racing in their arena. So that's really cool. Like they want to take pictures with you and such. And it's kind of like when we were in Japan, actually, I was with a bunch of athletes and, we were all like, I was with like Fred Curley, so like bigger, like black guys and stuff like that. So I think they thought that we played basketball. So we take like the train system over to like, downtown Tokyo because the train system's really good over there. And they wanted to take pictures with us because I think they thought that we were basketball players. But, we didn't want to disappoint them. So we just, I guess, played the part and didn't say anything. So that's probably my favorite place to compete just because of all the fans and the culture and the people over there. To train, it's probably in St. Moritz. Pete has us doing camps over there every once in a while. It's at, I think, like 8,000 feet altitude or so. So it's pretty high up there. And it's just a beautiful little mountain town up in like, I think central Switzerland. I'm not really 100% sure, but it's like a 3-hour train ride from Zurich. So that's probably my favorite place to train and then compete is probably Tokyo or Japan.
Okay, question from Rylie Bryce here. He wants to know how different is like the mental approach, let's say, of a Diamond League race, like in the lead up to a Diamond League versus a World Champs? Like, do they conjure the same kind of feelings and nervousness for you, or like, bigger the stakes, bigger the nerves? How do you approach that?
Yeah, so that's a good question actually. So for me personally, I think it's all about the competition. It's all about like a Diamond League's always gonna, A1 competition. It's always gonna be the best competition out there. So I would almost say that I get just as nervous for a Diamond League race as I do for, a World Champs. And almost for World Champs, it almost gets less and less stressful because you have that prelim, that semi, that final. The most nerve-wracking race is that prelim, the semi, you start getting a little more comfortable in that final. You're ready to run. That's your season right there. So it's make or break. But for these Diamond Leagues, it's kind of all or nothing, especially for a Diamond League final. So I would say when it comes to the nerves, I think they kind of settle in come a World Championships. But for like a Diamond League, it's just the best of the best. It's always the best of the best there. World Champs, you'll have guys that are like 146, 147 runners in your prelim and stuff like that. And not that they shouldn't be taken seriously, but they're just not the same competitive caliber as, say a Diamond League final.
Jeff Merrill wants me to ask you about the nickname Donnie Braz.
Yeah, I don't know why he keeps sticking with that. I don't know where that came from. I think he asked me, and I told him like that's not one of my favorite ones, but he insists on it. So, for all he does for us, I'm not going to tell him no, don't call me that. But definitely not my favorite.
All right, can we set the record straight then for anyone in future who's interviewing you or commentating a race? What's your go-to?
Yeah, DB. My Donovan. So first initial, last initial, DB. That's what most people go with.
That's an easy one, right? All right. My last question, and this, like, hopefully we can settle an age-old running debate in this one. Obviously, when you're racing, we see you in the half tights, but in training, is it half tights or is it split shorts?
Ooh, depends on the workout. If I want to feel like a sprinter or have some, tough guy energy, I wear the half tight or the half tights. But if I'm just going for like a light brisk jog or I'm doing like a tempo and kind of need to feel that, anaerobic ability, I'll do split shorts for sure. And I think I'm the only one on the team that wears half tights actually. Craig's a split shorts guy, Eric's a split shorts guy, Sugar's a split shorts guy. No, Sugar goes back and forth a little bit.
What is, especially now it's off season, what is the number one used app on your phone?
The number one used app on my phone. Dang, I can't look at it either because I'm recording myself with it. Let me think actually. The number one used app on my phone is probably Facebook. I'm a big Facebook guy actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I love Facebook. I'm not really I like Instagram a lot too. I like Twitter, but Facebook is just more like you can get like zoned in on Facebook. I don't have TikTok, so I haven't fallen into that TikTok hole yet where you're just kind of like going through videos and such. But I'm kind of like segueing into that because I'll go on Facebook and kind of go on the explore page there, and I'm going through like dozens of videos and such things like that. So for me, it's definitely Facebook.
What are you what are you watching when you're on YouTube or you're on Facebook? Or what's your like video indulgence?
I love watching like fishing videos. And well, because first off, because I like learning from them, and second off, I love the entertainment of them. So if I'm going like to like Florida, I'll just like research like a certain area or a specific lake or such. And then if I'm out here in like Oregon, I'll try to find out like because for some reason like I suck at fishing in Oregon, and I don't know why that is. Like it's just so different from fishing in Michigan. So I'm kind of just watching for entertainment, but at the same time taking notes because I just for some reason cannot nail the fishing in Oregon for some reason. But I'm working on it, and that's kind of what this off season I'm gonna kind of put my trade to a little bit harder.
Hey man, all the best with it, and I hope on your Instagram over the next couple months or couple weeks, I hope we see a bunch of fish in there as well.
Yeah, I try to
Show
keep
us
you
what
guys
you're up
posted
to.
with that. I don't want to bore you guys with all the running stuff, so I'm trying to show you different parts of it, and definitely that's what I've been kind of grinding on the past 10 days is a lot of fishing.
Love that. Donavan, thanks again for jumping on the show today. And look, whatever the rest of 2020 has in store, good luck, and thanks again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Russell Westbrook, if you're watching, I mean, I'd love to set up that 400-meter race. Maybe we could do it at the Nike track. I'm not sure, but if you have some downtime, let's make that happen. That's it for the show this week, guys. We have more amazing guests coming up every single week. If you liked the show today, be sure to give us a review or a subscribe or whatever tickles your fancy there. We really appreciate it. Helps the channel out a lot. Until next week, guys, take your easy days easy. Thanks so much for watching Running Things here on YouTube. If you haven't already, do us a favor, hit that little subscribe button. It really helps out our channel. Also, tell your friends and don't forget to follow us on Instagram @Tempo Journal.